top head coaching candidates. That's what I wanted to discuss because, well, not going to name names, but you know who you are. Their teams are already kind of in the market.
Yep.
We say. They already have their eyes on the future. And there are already OCs and DCs throughout the NFL making a name for themselves. So I want your guys' take. It's just like, let's say your top two. You got a team in need of a head coach. Who are you looking at right now? And I think it's also an interesting conversation. Do we want an OC right now, or do we want a DC with the way the game's going?
See, I want to present both situations. Do you have somebody in mind for your pairing? Do you have a Amakase ready for these fine folks?
I do, but I think there's another category you got to throw in there, not just the offensive guy, defensive guy, a leader of men who's like the overseer, kind of like my guy. And
those are almost always
like Mike
defensive guys, though.
Yeah,
defensive guys.
They're usually defensive guys. Well, not in Detroit. Yeah, Dan Campbell's. He's a guy that doesn't call the plays. So
yeah.
That's a leader of men. I mean, you now that I'm thinking about all these brains and people with
you got to think about leaders of men.
But you have to keep in mind, I got drafted in 2013 by Mark Trestman's Chicago Bears. And Mark Trestman, one of the finest minds in offensive football, he stood at the back of the meeting room. And so like team meeting, where does the coach stand? At the front,
so when he held the meeting, he literally was in the back.
Coaches stand at the front of the meeting room, at the bottom of the stairs. So Mark Trestman would do it from behind everybody while on the projector there was, the daily agenda and all that stuff.
Really?
And I called my dad and I'm like, have you ever seen this before? Because this is my first day in the league. I'm like, is this normal? And he's like, Trestman was with Bill Walsh in San Francisco, and that's how he ran his meetings apparently too. Cool. So you got to know who they are. You got to know where they've been.
It's the tree.
And also, you're not going to know how they are as leaders of men until you're around them.
Correct.
So like 10 years ago, if you showed me a picture of LaFleur and said, this guy's an offensive genius, I might say, yeah, but how does he do in front of a bunch of D linemen that are roasting his ass for the way his pants fit or something like that? You have to find the right guy. And for me, you have to find a guy that can get the most out of your players, right, in your situation. And I think about a team like, say, Chicago. Okay, I'm not going to say they should get rid of Eberflus. I don't want to call for anybody's job this early in the season. But let's just say they make that move. You know what I'm saying?
Let's just say.
You need to bring in somebody to maximize your number one pick. You need an offensive-minded head coach. And you need to find the best coordinator that you can for the defense. And they've got a great defense. They've got great guys in play. Maybe, have you ever seen a head coach step down? Have you ever seen a head coach step down and become a DC? I think I could see it happening. Chicago would probably have him because they love his defense. But I think you have to bring in an offensive head coach. And for a team like Dallas, we've talked about this, if it is McCarthy, if they struggle down the stretch like they have at the beginning, it has to be a Bill Belichick hire because Jerry Jones can then appease his fan base that has, if the section of his fan base that has no football knowledge, they're just like, well, they signed the best coach ever. He did his job. Jerry Jones brought in the right guy. And then from a football standpoint, your team's going to get better because you hire Bill Belichick. There's going to be less infighting. There's going to be more maximization of the talent on your roster. In my opinion, I feel like that's the value of a head coach, and that's the value of a guy like Belichick. And then also you get a masterful scheme if you hire an offensive coordinator anywhere.
Yeah, well, I think the OCDC game manager, or not team manager, sort of like the debate there. If between OC and DC, I just want innovative, right? I want a guy, because when someone's doing something different and it's working, that was like Belichick's thing throughout his history. He always had the game plan like that work. When someone's doing that, you have to understand both sides of football, right? Like you understand offense. You have to understand offense in depth to then have a defense that's complementary enough to shut down those offenses. So I just want that guy who knows
hire a tight end. Because tight ends do run game, pass game, coverage. It makes sense.
So for that perspective, Brian Flores, I think, is doing innovative things. Correct. In this case, and obviously leader of men. Are you kidding me? Like that guy has that, what do you say? I was born, put on this earth to coach the game of football. Like he is that. So I think
that sounds pretty cool, huh?
It does.
Bill Belichick are probably the top two. And Belichick, I still trust to coach the defense side of the football. It's just, can he give up all the other stuff that went so awry in New England? Because it did go awry. Like flat out, his evaluation of players his past 5 to 6 years there was poop. It was some of the worst in the NFL. And the free agency decisions they were making were not good. So I do think that's the biggest thing with him. I would probably put those the top two. After that, offensively, remains to be seen. Klint Kubiak, Ben Johnson are probably the two guys that I've seen do like different things that I'm intrigued by.
I like Ben Johnson.
Joe Brady and what he's doing with Buffalo could get looks.
Ben Johnson
but
had an opportunity. He just hasn't
so early.
Yeah.
True. And then Mike Vrabel, if we're going back to leaders of men, Vrabel's still on the sideline, leader of men. But yeah, I think
if you had to pair any of these coaches, like if you had to,
so you're firing coaches right now.
So again,
if where would this is less about the team that they're replacing the coach of, and more about this exercise, just finding out where.
So if Eberflus, we're putting him back at DC, which I think he has to grow the beard out if you put him back at DC. Okay. You can't have the trim coif beard as a DC.
Van Joseph was the head coach of Denver, and he went back as a DC.
See, like
it wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same right away. But
this could be something.
So I think the pairing I like the most for OC to quarterback is obviously the Jacksonville Jaguars, the one that's who we're thinking of. It's a team that's 0-3. I like Klint Kubiak to that offense. I think they just need an identity. Flat out, you watch their games, and there is not much of one.
Flood.
Yeah, it's tough. It's hardly an identity. That's an identity in Halo 3, but not in the NFL. That's the one I like for, if we are saying the Chicago Bears, and an offensive mind for them. I think Ben Johnson would be the one.
That's what I'm saying. I like that. Is he
going to ever leave?
Is he going to ever leave?
I got buddies in Chicago who like really want this Ben Johnson character.
He's had like 2 years in a row to leave, and he just hasn't done it. I mean, I think a guy that we left off this list that was one of the hottest OCs last year, Bobby Slowick.
Yeah,
Bobby from Houston Texans,
and they were able to retain
the tree,
him.
Right? Look at the tree, the Shanahan tree, and how it's had a lot of success. Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur, like all these guys have had success. And Slowick comes from that tree. So I think owners will take that into consideration because, like, we've seen pupils leave that, that staff.
Yes, yeah.
The Miko, like, we throw him on the defense side, even but he was under Kyle Shanahan, like, and have had success. Like,
talk about a leader.
I mean, it's the most successful tree in like modern NFL history. It's not
maybe
even
ever.
Close. Truly, like every single, whether it's McVay came from that, whether it's LaFleur came from that, even Zach Taylor kind of in an ancillary way.
Kevin O'Connell, technically.
Kevin O'Connell, yeah. It's like,
so
like the downstream effects from that tree are
that's how he made
everywhere
Slowick look so bad. We think it was Flores, but it was really KOC.
He knew how to attack the offense.
He's like, I know which questions he got wrong in the meeting. So you're going to get on his ass.
I'm too close to Bobby, though. Good friend of mine back from PFF days, so
Sorry,
I can't gas him
Bobby.
up too much.
But we love you, Bobby.
But he'll get head coach looks for sure.
Bobby, you need a big tight end? Bobby?
Extra lineman.
Come on.